Time for the NordCast here on WOBL, and here's your host, Nord Center CEO Don Schiffbauer.
Hi there, and I'm not, in fact, Don Schiffbauer. I am Betsey Kamm, and I am proud to serve as the Chief of Institutional Advancement at the Nord Center, and I am filling in for Don today. For those of you who are not familiar with our agency, the Nord Center is a nonprofit behavioral health center headquartered in Lorain, Ohio, and we are the largest provider of behavioral health services in Lorain County. In fact, we have a footprint also in Huron County, but it doesn't matter where you're from, anyone can receive services from our team of skilled clinicians, and that is also regardless of your ability to pay. The agency has 5 core programs, and those are adult behavioral health, crisis services, sexual assault services, which includes rape crisis services for adults and for kids, residential and housing services, and child and adolescent behavioral health. In today's NordCast, we will continue to explore not only what our programs are and whom they help, but also the positive impact they have on the health of our community, and we will highlight our relationship with other agencies in the community and how those important collaborations are centered around you. In today's episode, we'll explore a program from one of the Nord Center's core service areas of adult behavioral health, and that is first episode psychosis and early serious mental illness. We will consider some topics such as what is psychosis, whom does psychosis affect, and how does it affect them? Why might it be important to take a specific approach to a person's first episode of psychosis? What are some common myths about people's ability to continue to live a, quote, normal life after a diagnosis of serious mental illness? And what's really true about that? And I am delighted to have 2 amazing guests with me today to help us sort out this fascinating topic. But first, we're going to take a short break. Stay right there.
At Susan G. Komen, we believe that ending breast cancer needs all of us working together. Because if you've just been diagnosed and don't know where to turn, we've got you. If you can't afford the treatment you need, we've got you. And if you are driven to honor the loved one you've just lost, we have a place for you here. Because of you, we're supporting those who need help today while tirelessly searching for tomorrow's cures. Visit Komen.org and be a part of our Susan G. Komen community today.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers. So we build specially adapted homes at Homes for Our Troops. And thanks to our donors and supporters, this life-changing gift of freedom is provided mortgage-free to these veterans. But we need you to join us, too, in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Only 1 in 5 people with autism are employed, despite many having the skill set and desire to work.
Maybe it's because employers don't know what kind of jobs they can do. Like, what about a programmer?
That's a job for someone with autism.
How about a healthcare worker?
Yep, that is too. People with autism can do a lot of different jobs, but often get overlooked due to outdated stigmas. Introducing WIN by Autism Speaks. We help businesses lead the way in inclusive hiring.
What about a ranch hand?
Yeah. To learn more, go to autismspeaks.org/win.
My dad, he's a double amputee, and he's one of my favorite people in the world. To me, a hero is someone who fights for our country and freedom. My dad is a hero. Homes for Our Troops built this house, and my dad can get through the wide doorways. He can reach anything.
Homes for Our Troops builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post-9/11 veterans and enables them to rebuild their lives. Join our mission at hfotusa.org.
To do a deeper dive into the Nord Center's first episode psychosis program today on the NordCast, I would like to welcome one of today's guests, Rachel Suhy. And welcome, Rachel, to the NordCast. Please tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your role at the Nord Center.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Suhy, and I'm so happy to be here with you all today. So I've actually been at the Nord Center for the last 9 years. I started off as a case manager myself. I moved into a therapy counseling role and became a licensed professional clinical counselor, and now I supervise case managers. I actually started on the first team about 7 years ago as the first case manager, and now I get to supervise the program. So it's kind of like a full circle moment for me.
Well, thank you, Rachel. That's great. So you were the first. First, all the firsts. So some of the terms that we in our field talk about are not really household words. So just to make sure that folks who are listening understand what we're discussing, can you tell us a little bit about what is psychosis?
Yeah, absolutely. So psychosis is hearing and seeing things that aren't there that maybe others can't experience. A lot of times hallucinations, which is kind of one of our fancy treatment words, it can be experienced as something you hear, smell, see, or feel that maybe doesn't exist. So for an example, have you ever thought about or thought your phone was vibrating when maybe it actually wasn't? That's actually a hallucination. For our clients who have psychosis, it is a little bit more severe and extreme. Individuals who experience psychosis may hear voices or see people or things that others don't. So they might have a delusion as well, which might be a belief in something that doesn't really exist or that's not shared by other people. With psychosis, there are also negative symptoms that are associated with that. So some of those symptoms might include losing interest in things or motivation, difficulty concentrating, having difficulty managing your everyday activities, or even having trouble with showing emotions.
So given those things, why would it be important to take a specific approach to a person's first episode of psychosis?
So it's really important to have early intervention treatment. There's been a lot of studies in support that show the sooner that you can get into treatment, the better your outcome will be for most people. The goal of our first program is to get our participants back to work and school so they can maybe live as normal of a life as possible. I'm a big proponent of going to work and staying busy and staying active, as this supports a lot of recovery. The first program is an evidence-based practice, which means that there's a lot of research that's going on that continues to go on to help support these theories and thoughts.
So can you give our listeners a high-level overview as to what the first program consists of?
Yeah, absolutely. So our first program, you have to receive a diagnosis of the schizophrenia spectrum disorder. Also, you want to be newly experiencing mental health treatment. We really focus on young adults between the ages of 16 and 35. ESME, our early serious mental illness, is kind of just the same as first. It's just a different diagnosis of either depression or bipolar, so a mood disorder. The program consists of 5 different components: case management, psychiatry or medication, counseling, family psychoeducation, which is bringing a loved one that you identify as a support to you into the treatment process to give them some education on psychosis, and supported employment and supported education. Like I mentioned, we really focus on wanting our participants to return back to work and school, as that proves to be better in your recovery. So if you have any additional questions, we actually have a first hotline that I usually answer, and I would be more than happy to take your questions. And that phone number is 440 204-4200. Our goal of the first program is to provide support and education to the family and to the participant to help improve recovery and reduce the chances of relapse and being able to set goals for the future.
Well, that's been really interesting. I know I was around when the program got started, and I was really proud to be able to help with the initial rollout, and it's been hugely successful. I think our friends at the state who fund it are proud of the work we're doing, and I am proud of the work we're doing too. And we are going to take a short break, but we will be back to discuss other aspects of this topic with our second guest. Stick around.
America is kept safe because the Army National Guard responds, protects, and supports our nation when it needs them most. The Army National Guard responds to disasters such as wildfires and floods. They protect us with missile defense, cybersecurity, and civilian support teams for chemical, biological, and radiological hazards. Be there for your community and your country. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more about part-time service. Sponsored by the Ohio Army National Guard. Aired by the Ohio Association of Broadcasters and this station. America is kept safe because the Army National Guard responds, protects, and supports our nation when it needs them most. From fighting wildfires with air support, helping civilians in flooded neighborhoods, to delivering food and supplies to those who have lost everything, the Army National Guard always responds when disaster strikes. The Army National Guard also trains to be ever vigilant against threats, foreign and domestic. They protect our skies with missile defense weaponry. They secure our information, communications, and infrastructure with cybersecurity. And they protect us against chemical, biological, and radiological hazards with the civilian support team. The Army National Guard also stands ready to deploy and provide support for conflicts or humanitarian missions abroad. Join the Army National Guard and be there to respond, protect, and support your community and your country. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more about part-time service. Sponsored by the Ohio Army National Guard. Aired by the Ohio Association of Broadcasters and this station.
LEAD, Law Enforcement Against Drugs and Violence, is the most rapidly growing drug and violence prevention charity in the United States. By using an evidence-based, tested, and proven effective curricula taught by law enforcement and educators, LEAD's school-based anti-drug and anti-violence program empowers children to make the right decisions about drugs, violence, alcohol, and bullying. Learn more about LEAD at leadrugs.org or follow us at We Are LEAD. Sponsored by LEAD Incorporated.
Many veterans in active duty military have invisible wounds like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and anxiety. Help Heal Veterans offers them medicine that doesn't come in a bottle by providing free therapeutic craft kits, time-tested healing tools for invisible wounds that can help relieve pain and improve mobility and fine motor skills. HealVets.org, healing the invisible wounds of war through creativity. HealVets.org, sponsored by Help Heal Veterans.
America is kept safe because the Army National Guard responds, protects, and supports our nation when it needs them most. From fighting wildfires with air support, helping civilians in flooded neighborhoods, to delivering food and supplies to those who have lost everything, the Army National Guard always responds when disaster strikes. The Army National Guard also trains to be ever vigilant against threats, foreign and domestic. They protect our skies with missile defense weaponry. They secure our information, communications, and infrastructure with cybersecurity. And they protect us against chemical, biological, and radiological hazards with the civilian support team. The Army National Guard also stands ready to deploy and provide support for conflicts or humanitarian missions abroad. Join the Army National Guard and be there to respond, protect, and support your community and your country. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more about part-time service. Sponsored by the Ohio Army National Guard. Aired by the Ohio Association of Broadcasters and this station.
And we are back for the next segment of our show, and I would like to introduce our next guest, Will Mount. Will, welcome to the NordCast, and please tell our listeners about you and your role at the Nord Center.
So, yeah, like you said, I'm Will, and I am the therapist for the FIRST and SME team. And so Rachel had mentioned family psychoed as well as the individual therapy, so I head both those fronts. And what that looks like, you know, it's different for different clients. So, like, I could present kind of more like a coach or more like a teacher or more like a guide. It kind of depends, and, you know, that's something I'll get into, is I like to kind of tailor my approach to with different clients while also being within the framework of the FIRST program.
That's really, I guess that makes a lot of sense when you think about it. So when a person is newly diagnosed with a serious mental illness, that seems like something that would be a big impact on the family and significant others. Is that your experience?
Oh, 100%. Actually, within the DSM, which is what we use to diagnose mental health conditions, one of the staples of each diagnosis is that it causes clinically significant impairment in these different domains of your life. One of them being in your family, familial functioning, right? So absolutely, you're going to see an impact with your family, with your significant others, with your friends. If you are working at work, your ability to do well in school, you're going to see impacts throughout pretty much every part of your life, potentially.
So when I first learned about the FIRST program and was starting to help with the marketing support of the program, I guess I encountered the fact that a lot of folks have pretty fixed ideas about what it means to be diagnosed with a serious mental illness and how much you can continue to live a, quote, normal life after such a diagnosis. What would you tell our listeners about what's really true about that?
Mm-hmm. Well, first things first, I really resent that term normal, because really what is normal, But yeah, there are lots of myths about, being able to live a normal life after getting this diagnosis. I describe it to my clients as it's really just a label. It's a label that we use because it's important for clinicians to kind of know, hey, this is kind of what this person's dealing with. But what is really the case is that we find when you get these services and when you participate in treatment, when you're honest with your providers, and as you're building that self-awareness, and we connect all these dots, that people really are able to regain quite a significant amount of functioning, and are able to live much more gratifying and satisfying lives.
So I think in the mental health field over the last maybe decade or so, there's been a lot more emphasis on the idea of recovery. And I think maybe in the public's imagination, that's just not something that you recover from. But in your experience, what do people need in order to help in their recovery from mental illness? What fits into that picture for them usually?
Well, definitely treatment, as well as, and this is something we teach a lot to families, just showing grace, and tempering expectations, that you may have had a certain idea of your life trajectory up until that point, and not to say that you can't still have that trajectory, but to really acknowledge that it's a significant life change, right? And to treat it with that newness and to give that a family member grace because they're figuring this stuff out as the same as we are.
I appreciate that. That's really helpful. If you don't mind, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit and ask you if. I know that part of the scenario is sometimes medication when somebody's being treated for significant mental illness. Could you tell us a little bit about the role of medication and helping people to do what you said, keep their lives on track while coping with a serious mental illness?
Oh, yeah, sure. So medication is really pretty fundamental in our experience. So I speak for myself in my experience working with these clients because it helps to stabilize a lot of the underlying symptoms that make living life so difficult. And so in my experience working with these clients, I would say that kind of the first pillar is medication. And then from there, when we have that stability with our symptoms, engaging in stuff like individual therapy and family psychoed so that we're able to build that self-awareness and able to be more resilient and to be more future-oriented,
And I'll add to that, too, medications can really play a vital role in recovery. So we operate under a shared decision-making model. So we want really the client's input. We want them to be participating in their treatment. But we also think shots can be, really helpful. There are different shots that people can get for psychosis to help with those symptoms. So they can come in a 1-month form, a 3-month form, or even a 6-month form as well. And by getting those and keeping up with them regularly, that can also help stabilize your symptoms.
So just to enlarge upon that point a little bit, because this is, I guess I am of a certain age, and medication has changed and improved in the time that I have been in the field or proximate to the field. So for somebody who's able to get an injection of a long-acting antipsychotic?
A long-acting injectable, LAI.
Injectable. For somebody who's able to get that, what that means is they don't have to remember to or comply with taking their medication on a regular basis. And I assume that can kind of be a game changer.
Absolutely, especially when you're going to school or you're working every day. It can be really hard. I struggle remembering to take pills every day. So if I come in once a month, maybe once every 6 months even, to get an injection or a shot, that's a lot easier to remember than, every single day.
Makes good sense and is one of the helpful tools in our armamentarium of tools. I think we really do appreciate you guys both shedding light on this topic, and after our break, we'll come back to discuss a few other aspects. Stick around.
LEAD, Law Enforcement Against Drugs and Violence, is the most rapidly growing drug and violence prevention charity in the United States. By using an evidence-based, tested, and proven effective curricula taught by law enforcement and educators, LEAD's school-based anti-drug and anti-violence program empowers children to make the right decisions about drugs, violence, alcohol, and bullying. Learn more about LEAD at leadrugs.org or follow us at We Are LEAD. Sponsored by LEAD Incorporated.
Those headaches and stomach aches your child gets may be migraine. 10% of children and 28% of adolescents have migraine disease. Migraine at School can help. Learn more at migraineatschool.org. As a parent, I know how migraine impacts my daughter's ability to learn. Every child deserves the chance to flourish in school. Visit migraineatschool.org. Sponsored by the Coalition for Headache and Migraine Patients.
At Susan G. Komen, we believe that ending breast cancer needs all of us working together. Because if you've just been diagnosed and don't know where to turn, we've got you. If you can't afford the treatment you need, we've got you. And if you are driven to honor the loved one you've just lost, we have a place for you here. Because of you, we're supporting those who need help today while tirelessly searching for tomorrow's cures. Visit Komen.org and be a part of our Susan G. Komen community today.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers. So we build specially adapted homes at Homes for Our Troops. And thanks to our donors and supporters, this life-changing gift of freedom is provided mortgage-free to these veterans. But we need you to join us, too, in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Welcome back, and glad you're back with us. Again, we are fortunate to have with us today Rachel Suhy and Will Mount, who are helping to shed light on how we can help folks when they first receive a diagnosis of serious mental illness. So let's dive back in with a few more questions. And this can be for either or both of you folks. What are some other factors that you as treatment providers consider to be very important in promoting someone's recovery?
So like I mentioned earlier, I'm really a big believer in working or going back to school. If you stay put in one place all the time, that really exacerbates kind of what's going on, depression, anxiety. Getting out, getting moving, doing something for fun that you enjoy can really kind of help with your symptoms. This is really heavy stuff that we're talking about here today. So doing something you love and enjoy, getting your family involved, loved ones, and making sure that you're keeping up with your treatment and your appointments are important to the recovery process as well.
So would you say that sometimes folks might inadvertently be concerned that if someone has a mental illness, working might be too stressful for them? And how would you help them understand that better?
Absolutely. So if your symptoms are really, really bad, you're struggling right now, then maybe work at this moment is not the best time. But sometimes work can really help stabilize those symptoms. Like I mentioned, having something to do, having a schedule and a routine, even kind of doing something for yourself, that self-empowerment can help you to feel better and start to get back on track.
So I would assume that for most people, receiving a diagnosis of a serious mental illness is something that we're kind of afraid of. When someone's new to the program, how do they cope with that information? And is there something the rest of us can learn from that?
Well, I would say typically, and you can share your experience too, Rachel. Typically, it's kind of a shock for both the individual as well as like the family unit, because there's so much stigma around these labels, particularly with schizophrenia. I think of the pop culture representations of schizophrenia. I think of like Mike Myers, like a literal axe murderer. So there's lots of like fear and stigma around it. And that's a really big indicator as far as like someone's prognosis is their ability to kind of come to terms with that and then assimilate that into like their own like self-image, that I am not just this label, I am a person who has these things going on as well, person first instead of like just being the label,
And really, the sooner that you can get in for treatment, the better. Hopefully the outcome is, our job is to educate and to really give the skills to help get you feeling better and doing better as well. I wanted to throw out that first hotline number again, just in case anybody's listening. If you have additional questions, the first hotline number, you can call 440-204-4200.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know that over the years, as we were talking about medications getting more and more effective, it seems to me like a lot more folks are pursuing things that we might not have thought possible with the kind of diagnoses that they have. For example, possibly being in college or having a pretty substantially responsible job. So I guess, how can we help people to know more about those successes so that more people don't have the stigma about what it means to be diagnosed with a mental illness?
So at least for us, we meet weekly as a treatment team, and we're able to update everyone who's working with that person kind of on successes and supports. I know our supported employment team, they talk about successes in the workforce quite a bit. Also, there's different FIRST programs across the state. So if you're outside of Lorain County, there usually is almost always somebody that you can reach out to for this support as well. And I think it's just getting the word out there. Platforms like this can really benefit people who have no idea that any of this cool new technology even exists, or what these programs are, what these acronyms are. We're getting out to the people.
So if someone has a concern about themselves or a family member, can we just recap a little bit about how one begins services at the Nord Center? Like, how would you actually begin to access this program?
Yeah, so if you have any specific questions, call that first hotline. I would say if it's an emergency, go directly to the hospital, call 911, or you can reach out to our crisis line. If you want to start services, you would have to come in, at least specifically for this program, through an intake. An SDA is what our fancy terms that we like to call it. You can come into the agency anytime between the ages, or the times of 8 and 2 p.m., and you can meet with somebody like Will. He does intake quite once a week, and that clinician will come in, kind of ask you a bunch of questions, get some history, get some background, and then get you scheduled up with follow-up appointments. Then once you're referred to the specific program, either one of my case managers, either Andrea Bailey or Sabrina Settlemeyer, will give you a call, schedule an appointment, or even he'll give somebody a call, and we can get you set up. And we usually get you scheduled with the doctor kind of right off the bat as well.
That's excellent information, and also I would refer you to our website, which is nordcenter.org, where a lot of this information is also available if you didn't catch it on the first listen. And our half hour has virtually flown by. I found this fascinating, and I hope our listeners did as well. I want to thank our awesome guests, Rachel Suhy and Will Mount, for sharing valuable information with us today. And just to remind everyone, the Nord Center's mission is to engage people in our community to achieve mental and emotional health through treatment, prevention, and advocacy. And we accomplish that by sharing the importance of mental health and the services available not only from our organization, but from other agencies in the community. We appreciate you, our listeners. Thank you for listening, and until next time, be well.
The proceeding was a paid informational program. The views and opinions expressed were not necessarily those of the staff, management, or advertisers of WOBL Radio.
Proudly serving Lorain County, 1320 AM and 107.7 FM. WOBL Oberlin.
From the Fowles Farm Market News Desk, I'm Denise Sorella. First, your Lorain County weather today. We'll see some sunshine, a high of 56. Tonight, we'll go down to 38 degrees. Well, we haven't seen those kind of temperatures in a while. Tomorrow, partly sunny, a high of 58. Health officials are trying to get the word out that Ohio's updated Smoke-Free Workplace Act includes e-cigarettes. That means that e-cigarettes may not be used at indoor public places, including businesses, restaurants, and bars. Health departments are right now reaching out to businesses with new signs and information about the updated Smoke-Free Workplace law. To report violations, call the Ohio Department of Health. 411 on Sports is sponsored by Nick Abraham Elyria Ford. Ohio State moved up a spot to third in the latest AP college football poll.
Georgia and Michigan remain 1 and 2 in the poll, which shows Florida State staying one spot behind Ohio State at 4th and Oklahoma at number 5, following its big win over previously 4th-ranked Texas. Penn State is 6th, followed by Washington, Oregon, Texas, and USC. Alabama is 11th. Louisville jumped to 14th after beating Notre Dame, which has fallen to 21st. Dave James, Owen and News.
Listen to us online, anywhere you go. WOBLradio.com and WDLWradio.com.
The biggest country stars of all time are on Lorain County Country. WOBL, AM 1320.